Hey trendsetters, it's your girl Heidi, and tonight I'm introducing Brian Bentley on Real Talk. Brian is one of my church brothers, and from day one, we just, started kicking it, and it was just one thing led to another thing, and it was just inspirational. His stories that he sat down and told me. Brian was also one of our first cameramen. Thank you, Brian, for helping this thing get off the ground. I appreciate it, my brother. How are you? How are you tonight?
Everything's all right. I'm taking it easy, enjoying the day.
We was talking just before we got on. Brian and I were talking about what it is that made him want to come on Trendsetters, and what he said what really touched me. It really, really touched me. He said, Heidi, if I had the opportunity to talk about my story so that it can make a difference, and this is why we're here tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We're here to hear Brian's story. And, Brian, the floor is yours when you're ready. Welcome to Trendsetters, Brian. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for sharing your story with us. Um, you know, this is not easy, and your journey wasn't easy either. I mean, this very well is the easy part of the journey, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It's still a fight. It's still a fight because I fight with myself every day because doing, I would say the way I was shaped
Mm.
is doing right was hard, and doing what was wrong was somewhat easy because of the influences I had around me. So
So
it's
let's
still a fight every day. I press on to keep doing the right thing. You know what I mean? Instead of trying to get over and resulting back to, what I was due to the fact that, I know where I came from and I know where I'm not trying to go again.
Right, right. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about Brian as a youth and how was growing up for you and what series of circumstances led to, you know, your journey.
Okay. Well, I could say, what started me into in the streets because I felt I didn't really have many choices at the age of 11 years old. Um, my mother was an addict, and I didn't meet my father until I was about 18. We lived in the projects of Atlanta. I have six sisters. And, it was like I had to provide when my mother was in her addiction.
Mm,
And at the age of 11, I felt I had to step up and provide what we were slacking. I had six sisters. We had to eat at night. We needed sneakers. We needed clothes to go to school. And, my mom was doing the best she was can in her addiction. When you deal with reality, the reality was is that, really no miracles was coming our way. We already knew the welfare check was gone and majority of the food stamps.
mm,
So I felt and how I was hardwired is, sitting there crying about it and hoping for a miracle at that point in time. Then put a box of church chickens on the table every night. So that left me as the big brother, even though I got four sisters older than me. They was living their lives, and I had two sisters younger than me that I had to take care of. So at 11 years old is when I started my venture into getting into the streets with hustling and violence and gang life, and I felt it was all justified due to the fact that I had to take care of my family and make sure everything was good at home. That's all I really cared about. I would never belittle my mother, and I just covered her faults. And it's like when you act as if, you become as if. Anything you do repetitiously for 30 days becomes a habit. And it's like all my peers, that's what they did. I was, in my younger teens hanging out with grown men.
Mm,
It is 15, 16 years old, and my closest friends was 21, 22, and 23 years old. And they was like guardians over me. They was teaching me the streets. They was teaching me how to hustle, how to buy coke, cook coke up into crack, and how to use a gun, how to tote a gun. And, as I seen it, a stand up guy. And even though I still went to school, I played football, you know, but I had a alternative lifestyle to what I was doing. I made my good grades. I played football. I had a scholarship to East Kentucky University. I graduated high school at 17. But at the same time, my once I got out of school, I wore this different mask. In school, I was Brian Bentley. At 215, I was Big B.
mm,
And I had a purpose. I felt I had a purpose. I had a meaning. You know, and that's what I was into until the first time I got shot.
mm,
And you would think that would have slowed me down. It's like it fueled my rage. It was like, my sick thinking made me feel like it was a rite of passage. I'm a man now. I got shot and I'm holding it down. I'm still kicking. I got a reputation. But it was all a facade. Because once I was able. How can I say it? Well, my grandmother told me before she died. She said God got a way of pumping your brakes and making you open your eyes and see the things that's around you. And at that point in life, I was real reckless. By the time I turned 21, I had been shot 5 times.
mm.
Last time I was shot, um, the guy tried to shoot me in the face twice. God saved me from that. And, you know, just, I had a whole change in life. And it was a lot went on with me. You understand? Like I said, my
So,
mother was an addiction. I don't blame her.
mhm,
She's a very resilient woman. That's my queen. She put herself into rehab. She bounced back, opened up her own business. It's been over 27 years since she was even an addict on crack cocaine.
praise
And if
God.
you sit and talk to her now, you couldn't tell she was, but,
God is
you
good. God.
know, that lifestyle lost me
So let's go
because,
back. Let's go back to when you was a kid. Something that you said, I've heard young people today say, and that is that lifestyle gave them purpose. You know, talk to me as a young man in the streets. Get us to understand, even that whole concept. I know that you said that your mom wasn't really around because of her own situation going on and she couldn't step in, but is it a place that you felt um, voids that the street felt, the street filled?
well, in my case, in my case, my motivation was making sure my two little sisters had what they needed at the end of the day.
I hear
You
you.
know, if I started hustling where a lot of the guys, they started me off as sitting in an empty apartment looking at video cameras with a walkie-talkie, telling me, as soon as you see an unmarked car, police car, you get on the walkie-talkie, you say one time. I was making $100 a night from 2:30 to 9 o'clock at night. And that opened up a floodgates to here it is. I'm delivering packages of drugs on a bicycle as a school kid. So that it was very addictive. My goal was I didn't stray away to where I was, like I tell a lot of these kids, why are you out here doing it? And they all the thing they can come up with is getting money. But getting money for what goal? Are you doing it because, like I tell them, are you doing it because it look cool? It's a fad. Because all you're really doing is building up an indictment because you ain't gonna get much hand to hand. And like I tell them, my motivation was making sure my two little sisters had, and every night to see their face that they knew that Big Bro was coming home with something to eat. Big Bro was coming home with at least $100, $200 worth of money in his pocket where we can get some nice sneakers or some nice clothes at Kmart or Walmart or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the more and more I did it, the more and more money I made, and the more I wanted, the more I was able to obtain. It got to the point where at 15, I'm paying my mother's rent. I'm putting $200, $300 in her pocket to keep her from having to do obscene things to get her drugs. I'm taking care of my two little sisters, and I felt like a man. I felt like what I was doing wasn't wrong because everything I benefited from it felt right. I was taking care of my family. So when I say I got lost, it was like that's all I wanted to do. Even though I was in school, I had a scholarship, played football. It didn't intrigue me more than a cash in hand job.
Yeah, I
When
got you.
I can get out of school at 3 o'clock, and by 9 o'clock, I got $1,500. It. I wasn't a dumb kid. I'm definitely smart. It's just that lifestyle that had me, and I had to play a part because I had to protect my family. So I joined the gang. I was the gang disciple, and I always have been a big kid, and I was very confrontative. The role models I had around me taught me how to be very confrontive, how to be a stand up guy. But the problem, you answer that problem. You don't linger it. You don't let it sit around. And that's what type of time I was on. And I had this reputation of Big B, and I had to hold that face when it really wasn't me. I was everything everybody wanted me to be, but me being myself.
Mm.
I truly found myself in prison because I had a whole lot of time with self, over 17 years with self, and it
How
was a
old
hard
when you
process.
first, how old were you when you first went to prison?
I just turned 21 up here in New York.
Mm.
I came up here, I was running guns from Atlanta to New York, and came up here December 3rd, 1999 to sell guns and hooked up with some guys in Harlem. I was in the middle of a $60,000 sale. They tried to rob me. I shot both of them and ended up getting 10 years for 2 attempt murders. And that's when the transformation started. My first son was just born. And I got arrested. My son was 6 months.
Mm.
And as soon as the handcuffs hit my arm, I went from a young boy to a grown man. They had me in Post and the Daily News, December 5th, 1999, as the Georgia, it read, if I'm being exact, the watermelon to New York, Georgia gun pipeline,
Mm,
where they said me and my cousin supplied New York City with at least 30% of the guns we was getting because, you know, I still believe that's a lie. But, if you want to check facts, you can go in the archives. You can see me on the Post and the Daily News December 5th. And, it was life changing. It was very life changing because, you know, I really wasn't raised like that. And I thought I was a grown man until I got put in the grown man situation.
mm,
By this time, I had met my father. I was just turned 21. I met my father when I was 18. He's a Baptist minister. And, me and him didn't really have a bond, because I didn't know him. And at
right.
that time in life, I was a real arrogant person because I made my own money. I didn't ask nobody for nothing. I was taking care of my family. You know, my motto was, like my grandfather told me, that I took way out of proportion. He'd always told me that men do what they want, boys do what they can.
Mm,
And all the men I viewed in my life, my role models was hustlers, drug dealers, robbers, and gangsters. And I adopted a little bit of all that in me, and when I went to prison, just to hear somebody stand over me and tell me that, at the age of 21, that I'm possibly I can do 30 years of life in prison, shocked my soul.
mm,
And I called my father for the first time I ever needed his help in life. You know, only thing he offered me was God. He couldn't offer me no help with getting out of prison because the few years I did know him, I disrespected the man because he wasn't there. You know, also, I didn't know him to respect him, but I needed his help. And when I called him and I told him my situation, only thing he offered me, he says, "Well, I need you." He said, "I'm gonna help you. This is how I'm gonna help you." He said, "I want you to, when you get off this phone, go to your cell, go to your cubicle." And I said, "I want you to fall on your knees." And he said, "You pray to God that they don't give you the rest of your life in prison." And he says, "I'm asking forgiveness." He said, "Because that's all the help I can offer you right now." I didn't understand in my immature mind what he was saying to me. I tell everybody right now today that me going to jail was a blessing in disguise of a tragedy because I was off the chain. I was reckless. I done shot people I done been shot. I done did some things that wasn't even in my character just for the people. And ultimately, it got me put in prison. I done probably looked at death 3 or 4 times, and God has pulled me away from that. And it took me to be locked up in a cell to really understand and learn who I was because I didn't want to come home from prison the same way I was when I went back in because I knew that I had a child out there that's going to be looking up to me. And I enjoy being a father to my children. And I would never want what I have experienced in life. I won't put it on my worst enemy. So, I definitely don't want my children to follow in those footsteps. So I knew I had to change me. And it was hard because I was antisocial. I had a grudge. I was mean. You know, I had zero tolerance for a lot of the bullshit. And my perception of being in prison is that you had to be this big, tough, hard guy that didn't take no shit. Because never been in prison. Then I get locked up in one of the worst prison systems in America, and that's New York State prison system.
Mm.
I was on Rikers Island for 24 months. They had to put me on Thursday because I was scared. I was fighting all the time. One of my biggest beef was with the Bloods. I didn't have no family on Rikers Island. I didn't trust nobody. And I was the type of scary person that if you intimidated and you scared me, I didn't clam up and run the closet. I will bust your shit and then see what you're gonna do later. And once I learned that the 3 or 4 dudes I got to fight with over the phone was blood, I realized I had a beef with every blood on Rikers Island. And I'm not gonna let nobody hurt me. And I'm already facing life in prison. So I feel like I have nothing to lose. So it led me to just be wild, just act insane like a savage.
Mm. Mm.
And that was only because I was scared. I didn't know what else to do because, they had recorded one of my phone calls and heard me tell my mother, you know, I hadn't seen her in almost a year and they wasn't going down on time. I just believed that I was doing 30 life in prison. And they heard me tell my mother, I was telling my mother I can't do 30 life, ma. And one thing I love about my mother, she don't sugarcoat nothing. She call a duck a duck. She ain't finna call it a pigeon. She ain't finna call it a pelican. She gonna call a duck a duck. And she had told me, she says, well, what are you gonna do? They already got you. You gonna kill yourself? I said, no, ma, I wouldn't kill myself. She said, so what are you gonna do? I said, well, I know one thing. I ain't got the balls to kill myself, but I do got enough balls to fuck with somebody bad enough that they'll probably do the job for me.
Mm.
So that was my mission
Mm.
because I seen a way out. Here it is. I went to Supreme Court arraignment and I basically told on myself being ignorant to the law. In the state of Georgia, I was a licensed gun owner. In the state of Georgia, they have self-defense. In the state of Georgia, they have stand your ground. Had I committed this crime in the state of Georgia, I wouldn't have spent the night in prison because it was self-defense. They drew down on me before I drew down on them. And the night I got arrested, I followed the rules that I was taught on the land that I lived in. I shot them, yes. They pulled out guns. They tried to rob me. I
Yeah.
defended myself. I
Mm.
even told them that if I wanted to kill them, I had to step over them to get out of the building. All I was trying to do is get myself out of harm's way, not knowing that I was making a written and video statement against myself in the city of New York, thinking I'm trying to, help myself out. When I go to Supreme Court arraignment, it's like it's an open and shut case. I gave them a video statement. I
Mm.
got 2 dudes
Wow.
that showed up to my arraignment with colostomy bags on a stick.
Mm.
I knew my life was over. So I had the mindset to, I'm 21 years old. You think I'm going to be incarcerated for 30? That's more years than I've been on the face of this earth. I didn't give a damn. And I was always fighting. I wasn't comfortable being in a dorm setting, knowing that 90% of Rikers Island is blood.
Mm.
And every time they put me in a dorm unit, I wish I could apologize to the brothers that I severely hurt, but That was my defense to keep everybody at bay. Every time they put me in a new dorm unit, the first nigga I made eye contact with, I jumped on savagely for no reason. I do apologize, and I pray that God forgive me for those actions. But it got to the point to where they sent me to the site because I would be in and out of solitary confinement for they'd take me out 2, 3 hours, they'd be taking me back. And they sent me to the psych, and the psych is like, yo, what's going on? They put me on Thursday to keep me calm because I wasn't eating the food. The food was nasty. I wasn't sleeping at night because it was too quiet. I can only sleep in the daytime when I hear things is moving. And the psych gave, evaluated me. And I told him basically I want to die, you
Wow.
know. And they started giving me psych meds. They gave me some Thursday. That stuff, I didn't know when Monday started and when Friday ended. That's how strong it was. But it kept me calm. I wasn't nervous, and then I wasn't violent. And it took a brother, God bless the dead, he's a Muslim brother. His name is Messiah. And he sat and talked to me and said, Big bro, you ain't crazy. He said, you put on a good show by keeping these young guys at bay. He said, but you ain't crazy. And he sat and he talked to me. And not even just being religious. Talk to me as a man that, that's been to prison a few times, that can see through the mask and the mask that I was wearing, and told me to relax. He said, first thing you gotta do is forgive yourself. He said that guilt you holding and all that. He says, you knew what you was doing was wrong. You knew what you did, and you still done it. He said this is part of the so-called game. He said you could take all the good, the money, the glitz, the glory, the glamour, the jewelry, all that, and they'll fine with it. He said, but when it comes to this part of the lifestyle, you can't deal with it. He said they ain't here you got to take in these drugs, which a sight record will follow you for the rest of your life. He said you about to go up in the mountains. He said you need to find God. You need to find peace with the self to calm the rage down. And it was a hard process, a very hard process. It wasn't overnight either. It took 4 or 5 years and it took small things for me to do that I wasn't used to doing. But I know, one of the things I used to do is get up and say good morning to everybody around me, whether they wanted to hear it or not, because that was something I wouldn't do. I was antisocial. If you said the wrong thing to me, I didn't give you a pre-warning. I just jumped on your ass and got it on over with. You locked me down because I felt like an animal. And once I started doing that, I started getting into studies of Black history, real Black history, from where I came from. I started getting into religion, reading my Bible, reading different books of religion, and my morale started changing. When the streets taught me, don't ask, take these books of different religions and different walks of life, showed me something different.
Mm.
It opened up a box that kept me in for years. It opened a box, and it's like I seen past a 5 block radius,
Wow.
and I wanted to explore more. I wanted to be my own man without caring about judgment. because I know that when I was locked up, the only friend I had was God and my mother. And I told her that, I apologize for all that I put her through. It was like, when I was 15, I had been shot 3 times. First 2 times she showed up to the emergency room. The third, because the doctor in the emergency room was very sarcastic, and I used to talk shit to him. Third time I came in, he said, "Hey man, you gonna make it to C18?" I said, "It's third time being in here in like 4 months." He said, "I called your mom." I said, "What you say?" She asked me, "Was you gonna die?" I said, "What you tell her?" I said, "Nope." I said, "She coming up here?" He said, "Nope." I said, "She'll see you when you get home."
Mm.
Got to the point they were shooting at me with my mother in my car. She didn't feel safe riding to the grocery store. I didn't see, at that point in time, I didn't see what I was taking her through. I had rage in me because the same thing these guys was doing to me, I was doing to them. And when I went to prison and I seen that my queen, when it was all over, my queen was still standing. None of the people that I was trying to impress and put precedence them over my mother, none of them was there. Half of the problems I got into was because I was fronting other people's beef. None of them was there. And I promised my mother, when I leave here, I'm gonna be a different son that you seen that went in. My long time girl goals now is to be a good son, a good father, and a good husband. And that's something that I live on a day-to-day basis. I want where I be complete that. If somebody's speaking over my body at my funeral, I live those goals day in and day out.
I see that. I see that. I see that. I see that. And I see, it's just like you said before, it's an everyday struggle. It's not something that you can slip on. You got to check yourself every day.
Yeah, I do it, because dealing with people, I have a temper, and I fight that monster every day. Just getting up, going to work in the morning. I do it. I don't do it because I want to. I do it because I need to do it. Because I'm a person that I'm my own worst enemy. I can't dip and dabble in anything because I'm the type of person. If I'm getting into something, I just can't get my toes wet. I'm gonna jump in neck deep. And I keep I try to keep, with God help, my priorities in front of me. I love to come home to my family. You know, I love going out there to work and working hard and coming home. It's different for me versus I could be sleep all day and be on the streets all night. And not really caring. I got people that love me, that look up to me, and letting myself down is letting them down. I don't think for myself no more. I think for everybody around me because they depend on me. And I love that feeling. I love the fact that I have a family to come home to. And it feels good. It really does. It really does. From what I've seen, I've seen death, I've seen incarceration, I've been left for dead, and I wake up every morning, and I asked God, He gave me another day. What is my purpose? What is my reason? I try to reach out and let my action and ways influence a lot of people because I know my action and ways when I was, you know, has influenced a lot of kids to do wrong. And it wasn't, like I tell everybody, the people around me, they show me things indirectly. Like my image of a man wasn't a guy that was integral. I say he was integral, but he wasn't somebody that my vision was a man was a he called the shots. This was the dude that had three, four females in the projects. Did what he wanted to do because he paid the cost to be the boss. That was my image of a man because I never had a father and met him at 18. And that's what my mind frame was. That was my image until I seen different, learned different, and once I graduated from high school and I blew my chances at college, I really didn't see a need to open up a book. Only thing that was on my mind was getting money. At the age of 18, I bought my first home. At 17, I had 2 weeks, bought some running guns in New York. I was able to pay for my mother's second wedding. Was able to help my little sister get money up to go to college. So at that point in time in my life, you couldn't come and tell me that what I was doing was wrong
Mhm.
because it felt so right because I was doing everything for I felt my family to win. And then God came right when I thought I was at the peak of doing what I was doing. He pumped my brakes and helped me realize that it wasn't right.
So, so you served 17 years?
I did 10 the first time,
Hmm.
came home in 2008,
Hmm.
stayed out till 2014. I lost my job. I had a job. I had got custody of my son. My oldest son is 25. And I had custody of him for like 3 years. Brought him up here to New York, Brownsville. And doing good. My son had me and my son's mother had a custody battle where I was given full custody of my son. And he had asked me for his ninth grade year. He says, Dad, if I passed ninth grade year with flying colors, can I go my 10th grade year at school with my mother back in Atlanta? And like I had told him, even after the custody battle, I would never keep you away from your mother like your mother has tried to keep you away from me. And he did his part. I got him to Georgia, to his mother, signed him up for school. And halfway through the year, the school calls me and tells me my son ain't been to school in almost 25 consecutive days. I'm calling my baby mother and she lied to me. Finally, Department of Family Children Service called. And I'm asking them why y'all, because the school called them and told them that my son hadn't been to school and been that I have full custody of him. They're calling me, asking me what's going on. I'm waiting here in New York. So they're telling me that the state is about to take my son.
Mm.
I walked away from my job because I wasn't allowed the state to take my son. I flew to Georgia, I get down there. My son and my baby mother's living from pillar to post at a friend's house. Me and her get to arguing. At the time, she's in a lesbian relationship. We all get to argue. They call some dudes over, and I acted out. I caught an assault case on a dude, and I got locked up. But that lead me to go into family court. When we went to family court, I had here in New York, I had already opened up a child support case on myself. For almost 3 years, I'm paying child support because when I got out of prison, like a man, I found a job 2 weeks after I got out of prison in 2008. I had a job. Called my son's mother and let her know, what do you need for me to help you to take care of my child better? We agreed on $600 a month. For 2.5 years, I'm sending $600. For a year and a half, I'm sending $600 a month to her. And as soon as I asked, can I spend some time? She knew I couldn't leave New York because I was on parole. As soon as I asked, can I spend some time with my son? It was like, I don't feel safe for him being in New York. You living with another woman, but yet at the same time, she's married. And it got to the point where I got tired of being a cash cow. So I went, opened up a case on myself because I wanted some rights to my kid. Only thing I could do is talk to him. And I can barely do that because she doesn't have a phone and she always has his phone. It took me like 2.5 years to get custody of him. We went to court, went to family court, and they seen that my son's mother has been subpoenaed to come to video court about 6 times. She never answered. Got the family court in Atlanta. They got my paperwork from my caseworker here in New York. It showed that, I held the same job for 3 years. I have a stable place to stay. I'm in the union. Um, I got my son to my medical benefits. And it came all the way down to they asked him, we're gonna pretend he was 11 years old. He said, we're gonna act as if your mother and father's not here in this courtroom. And I asked you, who would you like to stay with? He said, I'd like to live with my father. Just in case closed. Gave me full custody of my son. I made the mistake by letting him go down there in the 10th grade. He hadn't been to school, sleeping in the living room on cushions. And I got to argue with it. It's like, I'm sending money down here. Y'all lied to me. And she made it over dramatic. Then I had some guys to pull up. I did what I had to do. But at the end of the day, I left Georgia with my son 2 weeks later. When I got back to New York, I didn't have a job. I spent almost 4 months looking for a job into a job. Going down to the welfare office. They telling me I make too much money on unemployment in order to get public assistance. At this time, I'm making $186 every 2 weeks.
Oh my
For
God.
me and my son, and the female I was living with at the time, she had a 7-year-old son. And it was like I couldn't get a job. And it was stressful. And one day, I stepped outside of my box. I resulted to what I know how to do best. I know how to hustle. I know how to get out in the streets and get it. And once again, God intervened. I stepped outside of that box, went to Georgia, got me some more guns,
Mm.
and brought them back to New York. And the dude I was gonna sell them to, He was gonna give me $4,000 for 3 pistols. I brought him back an extra one, a fourth one. As soon as I got off the bus, he had detectives wait on me. I ain't even make it back to Brooklyn. I ain't make it past Chinatown, Canal Street. And that hurted me more than the time I did before because I knew what I was expecting the first time. I knew what I was doing. I was just trying to get a little come up, make a little money to hold me over into, and I did it again.
Mm,
And when I did it this time, it was like they made me into a known gun runner here in New York. They offered me 15. I fought the best I could to get 7, which I got. And the judge promised me, he says, I'm telling you something, it's your second violent here in New York. Your third one, promise you we build something around you.
mm,
He said it'll start with 15 and it end with life. He said, with your record with violence, he says, you'll probably spend the rest of your life in jail.
mm.
And that's when, I knew, change has to come. I got to do what's right. I can't afford to do nothing else, And so far, with the grace of God, He keep me on that path. I have very little temptations. I'm not into the hustling or the street life because I did it at a very young age. I'm burned out. It's nothing there. It's no purpose, and I really will, from what I've seen just being in prison, like right now in prison is full of kids. And I was with them. It's like God put me in an adolescent jail 6 of my 7 years of state, and that's Green Correctional Facility. And they sending them in there from 16 on up. And these babies ain't got a clue. And they losing them. They think it's something cool to be 17 and get 25 years and still think you come home young. And then corrections, as you can see on the news, correction don't give a damn. They killing us. These gangs are forcing these young people to fall in line. Either you're gonna be a gangbanger or you're gonna be a victim. And even in prison, I was a youth counselor in prison. I helped the ones I could, and I prayed for the ones I couldn't. And I feel that I can help them. I want to help them. And like I said, if I can help one, that one person can probably, when I'm not here, probably be the one to help my child out. And I feel that's me paying it forward, not because of things I literally done, but for those youngsters that seen me and took the path I took. I feel my actions and my purpose in life is to pay it forward, that at least try to help talk to them, let them see more than just a shallow vision, let them really see the whole picture of what's going on, because they don't got a clue. The music they're listening to, the music nowadays don't tell these kids on how to get high, how to kill themselves, and how to kill somebody. The movies, same thing. The books, same thing. And I feel that, I'm a living testament, and I ain't afraid of them. They can't intimidate me. I applied for a job 2 years ago as a youth counselor, and they denied me because of my criminal history. And in the interview, like I told the man, I said, "Y'all probably gonna hire that little Chinese lady because of her credentials, because she got an MSW and she went to college on juvenile behavior. But what you think she gonna do when she go to the projects and he knock on that young man door and he tell her, "Get the fuck off my front door. I ain't going nowhere. I ain't going to court." Think she gonna argue with that child and debate with that child? She gonna pack her bag and she gonna get on up out of there and tell them that he's non-receptive. They couldn't tell me that because I'm trying to save his life. He will have to remove me, and he can't do that either because I want him to win. I want him to love life. So it's gonna be harder for him to get me to leave, and it will hurt. They didn't see that way because they asked me, "What did I get the experience to work for you?" I got it right there in the University of Hard Knocks, right there with him, being incarcerated with him. You can't get no better experience than that. A book, a classroom
Right,
cannot
that's
give you
right.
the experience that I have.
That's right. That's right.
I done talked to Bloods, Crips, Muslims, Latin Kings, Nietas, and I don't work with them all, and I'm not intimidated by them. You know, one of my goals is I want to do a reality show called Big Brother's House, and I want, be honest with you, I want about 15 of the baddest, and we're in one house, and I want to turn G's into gents. I mean, gangsters into gentlemen. Challenge them, make them live outside themselves. Instead of just sitting back watching TV shows where you're glorifying them destroying themselves.
If you had one thing, just think for a minute. If you had one thing to tell the youth that are watching this show, this podcast, if you had something to say to them to penetrate whatever their distraction is, what do you think you would share with them?
It'll be real simple. Stop, look, listen, and think. That's what they're missing. They're too impulsive. They're moving over action, emotions. They're letting their emotions supersede their intelligence. I have seen what you have thought was wow. Once they back there behind that wall, behind that gate, I have literally seen the kid come out of a gangster when he embraced the fact that you're gonna be here for 10, 15 years. Ain't nothing mama can do for you. You're in here in the wilderness with the wolves. They don't let up. Now you want to be a kid. Now you want to listen when you had all those options before you got to this point. And I want to be that barrier before they get to that point. Because once you cross that line, some make it out, some don't. Some come out better people, some come out worse. Because, like I've always said, a lot of these kids don't need to be put incarcerated. Don't need to be incarcerated. They need to be, they need to be put somewhere as an alternative. I wouldn't even say jail. I wouldn't even say juvenile because juvenile has turned into prison. It needs something that's a little bit more challenging than a scared straight program. You know, they need real world guidance counselors. People that have been through what they have been through, and seen the path that they're trying to take. And they need more of us black men that's gonna stand up, that's gonna combat the attitude, combat the ignorance and the violence. Instead of standing there watching it, looking at it as not our problem, but until it becomes our problem. Because the way this youth is dying nowadays is at too much of a rapid speed. I was telling some kids and some young guys at my job a couple of weeks ago. Everybody in here is tough, but nobody's jaw has been tested. You get to arguing, you get offended, and you get a gun. That makes you tough. Makes you tough at all. Makes you dangerous, but not tough. I said, but then once you get upstate, you're looking for a savior. You're looking for somebody to help you. And it's not there no more when you had all the choices. You had all the choices in life. My nephew right now just turned 21 3 days ago. He's been in prison since he was 17 for murder.
Mm.
And I talk to him, I take care of him all the time. And like I tell him, now it's time for you to separate from all things. Find you. Find out what makes you laugh, cry, and smile. Because J Rock is in prison, but Jakeem is coming home. I'm gonna make sure that, and like I told him, he's Crip and he's in a situation now, like I told him, you murdered somebody. He doesn't want to be a gang member no more, which I respect. But like I told him, you don't have to participate in it. You don't have to be allowed with I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that because you create problems in there in prison for yourself. Walk alone and walk on, stand up. You got to be a part of nothing. Only your face is on your ID. I talk to him 2, 3 times a week, trying to be his motivation. He got his GED. He has about 4 more years left to do it before he come out. And like I told him, I'm here for you. I hate that he had to see that, but he wanted to be everything than what he was supposed to. So follow in my shoes, even though when he was born, I was in prison. And it's like I'm grooming him. He's becoming a little more mature. Told him, don't just sit there idling. When you idle in jail, the time is doing you. You're not doing the time. Try to learn something. When I went to jail, I had a high school diploma. I still took the GED test. Took up building maintenance. Took up floor covering. Took up general business. I took up so many trades that New York State said, you know what, we're not putting you in school no more.
Mm.
And I'm like, why? I'm doing something productive. But the tax paper was looking at that money like, how did he go to prison and get all these vocational trades and college degrees? And here it is. I got to pay to go to school. I got to pay for my own child to go to school, and he a criminal. So once I was done with that, I didn't want to idle myself. So I got into creating creating programs for the youth, for Black men. You know, I was an anger management counselor. I was also STD counselor. Um, uh, wow, I was a pre-GED tutorer. I was trying to help people, the best way I can, and give back. I have helped a lot of people get their high school diplomas, and I helped a lot of people learn about where they came from in order to know where they're going. A lot of our youth don't know real Black history. They know what the schools teach you, but they don't know what's really going on, the unadulterated things. And have help with that. I like helping. It makes me feel good to see somebody progress and move ahead. And because I have been one to advocate to see a lot of people fall, watch their
Mhm.
demise, and it wasn't fun. It's one. I love the fact that I don't have to carry a pistol in my back pocket and scan everybody that I stand up and talk to because I don't know who they are and what their ulterior motive is. And excuse me, I'm sorry, but it's like I'm happy in the space. God is carrying me. He's motivating me, and taking it day for day.
Brian, this was such a powerful story of your journey, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing it with our viewers. There's so much good work left in you. I'm going to connect you with a couple brothers that I know that's out in East New York, and they're doing positive things with counseling some of these young men that's in the street now and trying to turn them around. So I'm going to connect you with them. I think that you would. They're cool guys. I think that you would, appreciate what they're doing, and
Okay.
you
Mm-hmm.
continue. You are. Uh, you have turned yourself around, Brian. You a stand-up guy. You're trying your best to do the best that you can with whatever situations that you have, and you're doing a great job at it. You a husband, you a dad, you a working man, that hasn't been easy. I mean, even from you coming out, even the second time around and trying to find your way back, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, we want to thank you for coming on the platform and telling your
No
story.
problem.
We know that there'll be other times that you come back on with more people and we sit down and we have these conversations the same way. And I thank you. I thank you, my brother, for coming on tonight and
No
sharing your
problem.
story.
No problem. Sis, anytime.
All right, Brian, you take care. Trendsetters, this is Real Talk with Heidi. YouTube, Trendsetters Talk on YouTube, Trendsetters Talk on Facebook, Trendsetters Talk on Instagram. You know where to find us. We out there. Love you guys.
Good night.